therefore can give us a sense of Thomas Tuchel from his early years, his pre-PSG years, and he also covers Spurs, who play Liverpool on Thursday, so we've a bit to chat to Rob about. In the meantime, though, Daniel McDonnell of the Irish Independent, hello.
Hi Joe, how are things?
Great, welcome back. Dan was with us on the news round. So what's been going on since, Dan, is that West Ham have won again. That's just what they do. It's just what they do. They beat Crystal Palace by 3-2. West Ham are now up to 4th in the table, everyone. This has just passed me by that this was happening. 4th in the table. They're ahead of Liverpool in the table, now with an extra game played, admittedly. But David Moyes is having a very good time. Leeds are back in a bit of form after a wobble. 2-1 winners against Newcastle, where things must be very grim right now. And as we speak, we're at half-time in the 2 matches on this evening. Stuart Armstrong did put Southampton 1-0 up at home to Arsenal. They are 1 place ahead of Arsenal in the table going into tonight's games. But then Pepe equalised in 8 minutes, and now Bukayo Saka has just put Arsenal 2-1 up at half-time. Man City took a 1-goal lead against West Brom, courtesy of Gundogan early enough. Then Cancelo scored, and Gundogan again. He's in really good goal-scoring form. So City 3-0 up and cruising against Big Sam and West Brom. Dan, would you like to apologise to David Moyes for anything you may have said about him in the past?
No, but I mean, I don't know. Did we? I suppose we always said he was an okay manager. Did we? Actually, maybe not in the Sunderland time. Probably was declared finished at some stage or other. And you've got the wrap of time. I'm actually springing this on you, but I only just saw it before coming on air. Have you seen that there's been a bit of a Lukaku-Zlatan row this evening?
No.
So there's a Coppa Italia game between Inter Milan and AC Milan. I see Zlatan has just been sent off. As well. But if you were to sort of type into your social media channels, Lukaku, Zlatan, they've had a proper coming together with Lukaku. Obviously, with closed doors football, you can hear a lot more shouting between players. And Lukaku shouting profanities in the direction of Zlatan, and it's just taken off as a bit of a thing. So there we go.
Interesting.
Zlatan is still doing his thing, but I see he has been sent off. So maybe we can get up to speed with it in terms of what's actually happened in the last few minutes. But it's clearly a fiery game, and I suspect a lot of people might be watching this clip. That people will see it coming onto their world later on. But there was definitely some kind of skirmish of some description. I mean, Zlatan, I don't know. Maybe it's unfair. Maybe there's a completely different story, but like Zlatan still has this unbelievable wind-up quality on the pitch. Joey O'Brien, because he obviously played Shamrock Rovers back in September in the Europa League game, and we actually did a great piece. It was a sort of a newspaper group interview with with Joey O'Brien before the FAI Cup final, and I'd actually heard this afterwards at the time that there was an incident towards the end of the game where Zlatan had said something to Joey O'Brien that, in fairness, all the Rovers players afterwards were talking about how hilarious it was, including, I think, Joey O'Brien himself even, because towards the end of the game there was this great moment where Joey O'Brien in the far corner sort of skipped away from Zlatan. I don't think he nutmegged him, but certainly got away from him in such a way that I think he sort of enjoyed the fact that he had. And I think Zlatan said something along the lines of, "Hey, listen, when you retire, you can come and mine my garden in Los Angeles," which I think, to be fair, the other Rovers players on the pitch thought this was a pretty good riposte. So he retains his ability to throw out the one. And I don't know, this maybe we will find out there was a tackle or something that happened in this instance, but he retains his power. Wasn't there an Atlanta player mocking Zlatan over the weekend as well? You sort of have a bit of a curb your enthusiasm thing going on after Zlatan's negative comments about Atlanta, and then there was a clip of them scoring goals against them. So anyway, that's a bit of an aside, shall we say, but that's something else that is going on tonight.
Well, if Joey O'Brien's teammates aren't calling him the gardener ever since, they're just not trying.
They've lost it. Yeah, they've completely lost it. Yeah, but this is it. Like, you can. I mean, like football without fans is like soulless. But you definitely can hear more of your trash talk. You know, if you're actually at a game, if you're fortunate enough to be at it. But it seems like that incident tonight. There was a comment from the Lukaku, something to do with Zlatan, and there was a reference to someone's wife in the middle of it. So it'll take off,
right?
I'm sure.
That'll do it. It's Inter 0, Milan 1, by the way, 62 minutes in the clock. Coppa Italia, as Dan was saying, they're obviously 1 and 2 in Serie A, both having very good seasons. Lukaku reborn by all accounts as well, actually, even linked with a move back to Manchester City.
Like Moisey,
not United, yeah.
There's life after Manchester United. Lukaku, Moyes, plenty of other evidence out there, I'm sure.
Yeah. And so, and a very last one on this, Lukaku and Zlatan. When I look at this on social media later, I'm conscious there's a radio audience even listening, might be in their cars, Dan, within their 5K, I hope. What are we talking here? Am I going to look at this and go, Dan, it was handbags? Are we talking proper kerfuffle?
Oh, no. It looks like it's handbags, but what's noticeable is just Lukaku's been caught shouting something very specific in the direction of Zlatan. Something to do with Zlatan. I think I only saw this before coming on air, but I just feel like it's one of these things that's going on tonight. We can get on top of it.
The lads are getting on top of it outside and magicking it through to me. The pair, this is in the Mirror, the pair butted heads at the end of the first half before Lukaku launched an X-rated outburst in the direction of his former Manchester United teammate. You forget they would have been together, would they?
Yeah, actually, I completely forgot about that, yeah.
The Belgian ace was furious and appeared to say F you and your wife in the Swedes' direction.
There you go. I mean, it's not quite sort of Giles and Bremner and Kevin Keegan back in the day, to be honest. I don't think John Giles is going to be reviewing this on Thursday as one of the great on-pitch ceremonies. But it's just everyone's bored at the moment, so any sort of 5-second viral to drop into a WhatsApp group is like great fodder. And look at you shouted something at Zlatan about his wife. I mean, there you go.
Listen,
there's days in that. Let's analyse what it means.
Beats reading about the South African variant. Frank Lampard, I want to get your thoughts on all this. I've just been going through different papers, and it's kind of interesting piecing together the different bits and pieces. So, for instance, Telegraph in front of me, Matt Law, who broke the story initially. It's interesting. Lampard, he says, was given the news by Marina Granovskaya, and she's Chelsea director now, obviously, and very powerful there, aide to Roman Abramovich. So Marina and the chairman, Bruce Buck, gave Lampard the news in person yesterday morning. But what jumped out was he decided against heading straight to Cobham to say goodbye to the players. That jumped out. And then Miguel Delaney in your paper today, he was talking about the atmosphere in the dressing room, and he was saying that word had gotten back to figures upon high that many players did not like how the manager spoke to them. And there were questions about his man management. Communication was a problem, writes Miguel. And later on he says, sources say one influential dressing room voice was, quote, fed up of the manager by Christmas.
Yeah. I think there was also a line in one of the other English papers that equated Lampard sacking to the shooting of Bambi, I think as well. I think that was in the Times of London today. So there seems to be a lot of sympathy for Lampard in the tone of certain of the coverage in the UK. But I feel like, and there's been some incredibly well-sourced stuff on this, and the Athletic, to be fair, who probably wouldn't have a reputation necessarily for breaking news stories per se, because the nature of it is it's more club by club and stuff, and there's it's they're not necessarily always sort of regarded as a news site, but they did have a story at the beginning of the month that basically he was seriously under threat, like they were looking at alternatives, and that was sort of reported at the time, and they also have had some very detailed stuff in the last 24 hours, but again, similar to the details that you mentioned there. But what I was going to say is, like, it sort of feels like there's a life cycle for every Chelsea manager, and I feel like, as being a club that I don't really have any mad interest in, we haven't really had sort of since Damien Duff, we haven't had a sort of a mad Irish angle, an Irish angle there. And it just seems like the same story again and again of like a new manager coming in. The new manager has made a positive impact. I'm sure I remember us doing a piece at some stage about Antonio Conte coming in and talking about his positive influence around the place and so on. And then you fast forward through a period of time, and we're talking about that manager leaving. There's always very good information on how the decision was reached by the various people in the background at Chelsea. Even the fact that how this came out, very swiftly yesterday if the timelines of the Lampard meeting are true. And there's always a sense that by the end, yeah, some of the players had had enough of him. And look, in some respects, that's probably the story of every managerial exit at any club. This is why a lot of managers have a 3-year cycle. There's the great optimism, and then there's, eventually people out of players that had it with them at the end. But obviously at Chelsea, this cycle seems to be around 18 months long or 12 months long, depending on who you happen to be. And I don't know about you, but you end up feeling very cold about it. Lampard is obviously, there's some sympathy for Lampard in the English press, understandably to some degree, because he's one of their own, and there's a lot. They're probably desperate for an English manager to be managing, one of their own super clubs, which is obviously a rare enough thing that they do. So while the coverage is quite sympathetic, I can understand where that comes from to some degree. But at the same time, it's very hard to sort of be losing much sleep over the injustice of it all. It's just, this is Chelsea and this is what they do. You go in there with your eyes open. I think if you're not, you're naive to where you're working.
Yeah, it's an interesting point you raised about Chelsea, because I think we had this discussion before Lampard went in there, where effectively I just found it very hard to muster any enthusiasm for what they were about. And we're right back to that now. Like Lampard, I was interested in, a bit more invested in as a neutral. Maybe Chelsea fans don't feel this way at all. I'd be interested, 53106, if they're pretty happy with the constant revolving door and winning a league, to be fair, semi-regularly, like Conte 17, Jose 15. I'd forgotten Jose had won in 15. Jose 15, Ancelotti 10. So like 3 league titles in a decade is amazing. And you wouldn't say they felt like a dominant force necessarily in this decade as opposed to the previous one, but they've won 3 league titles. So maybe Chelsea fans think that's great. And a Champions League in there as well. And maybe they're happy enough. But I don't know. There's just almost no journey with Chelsea, or no stint. Like aside from Jose Mourinho, which Chelsea manager has gone past the 2-year marker under Abramovich, aside from Jose?
How long did Conte last?
2 years exactly.
2 years exactly. Sorry, is this more a question, or you have the answer sat in front of you there?
I have the answer.
Oh, you do? Okay. Ancelotti?
The answer is nobody.
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 What do goose hitting stints add up to in months' time? No, not very much, I assume.
Yeah, so I'll give it to you. We had Jose 04 to 07. We then had Avram Grant 07 to 08 in the Champions League final. Louis-Philippe Scolari, who could forget? Scolari, yeah. July 08 to February 09, so he lasted less than a year. Then Hiddink came in the February and went to May. So he was gone February to May. Then Carlo Ancelotti won a league title, got his 2 years. June to May, he just missed out, just shy of 2 years. And then Andre Villas-Boas came in June 11 and lasted to March 12. Then Di Matteo, of course, and the Champions League. So he did March 12 and they won the Champions League, but he was gone by November. Then Rafa came in November and he was gone by May. Then Jose came back, June 2013, and won the league in 15, but was gone by December after winning the league. Gus Hiddink, December 15, lasted till May. Then Conte came in. He was July 16 to July 18. And then Sarri, July 2018 to June 2019. It gets a bit boring reading all these dates out on the radio. You get the point, nobody. And so you kind of wonder, I mean, again, maybe this is not for Chelsea fans, but certainly as onlookers, why would you just have any interest in Chelsea or the new Chelsea manager? Certainly there's no era coming is the problem. Like there's no Thomas Tuchel era coming, so why form an attachment? Why get that interested even as a fan? Like I think the whole point of a fan, or the whole point of supporting a club, is to fall in love with a given team and a given manager at a given point of your life, and to go on a bit of a journey on them that's going to last more than a few months, like Jurgen Klopp and Liverpool. And he's into his 6th year now, like that. We're talking an era. So when I say an era, I don't mean Alex Ferguson. I don't even mean 10 years anymore, because that ship has sailed. I just mean 5-6 years of a journey, a proper chance for ups and downs and successes maybe, or some failures in there. And yet Chelsea, I mean, the model kind of works, so you can't quibble with the league titles in effect, but you do at a certain point say, what is the point of this? This is actually a mercenary culture at its most refined and developed, at its most routine and hollow. And it's not unsuccessful. I accept that. So this isn't a conversation about, well, you have to give a manager time and you have to give a manager control over the transfers for success. That's not that kind of old school conversation. It's almost to a degree you can level it at any Premier League company because they are now a company and a global company at that. What's the point? You know, in some ways, what is the point? The days of local lads and all that stuff are quite antiquated in places.
Yeah.
But there are some, obviously, exceptions. But you kind of think, well, what is the point when it comes to Chelsea? There's no journey. There's no something to get involved in for a couple of years of your life. And as a fan, and to round it all off, I guess, the thing is, what carried them through for a number of years was Mourinho came in and created something incredible, you know, in terms of a team, and it was Lampard and it was Terry and it was Drogba, and those players built around that spine. And even when Jose went, they were still that team, you know, and they overshadowed the managers in some ways. And so I was really interested in the Terry, Lampard, Drogba team. And when they won the Champions League in 12, I was delighted for them. Like, there's a lot to be kind of anti-Roman Abramovich about, and, you know, you can have qualms over that. But I loved Lampard as a player and quite liked Drogba. And I was happy to see them win the Champions League. And I was like, God, that was an interesting 8 years from 04 to 12. But since that group have gone, and the revolving door has now gone from manager to also the playing group, I'm just kind of looking at Chelsea, and it's really hard to muster much enthusiasm because, Dan, in 2 years or less, we're doing a piece on Tuchel's departure.
Well, yeah. Like, what you're basically saying is, are they happy? You know, that's basically that's effectively what you've said. Like, was it worth it? But like, I mean, at the same time, you can flip it and say, you know, say for example, you know, the Champions League win in 2012, Di Matteo, and the Jose League win. But the Jose League win was followed by like the Dr. Eva Carnaro case, and Di Matteo just unravelled. And in some cases, you can see why those people had to go, even if it was so short after their period of success. But I know exactly what you're saying, but it with some respects, it is like a product of the Abramovich era, you know, that instability. But if it wasn't for that Abramovich money, as you say, Chelsea wouldn't have sampled those highs. You know, Chelsea might still be the Chelsea of the late 90s and early 2000s, who were okay. But they have been able to compete really in this Premier League era. And Chelsea spent more than anyone last summer, I think. I mean, there was even a suggestion that Abramovich might have been losing a small bit of interest, and that seemed to have gone. And he's back and he's engaged again. And I know he had his own issues going on, and that might have contributed to that line of thinking. But it's the pact that comes with being the sort of Chelsea follower or whatever. I mean, I don't know too many Chelsea fans. I know a couple quite well who, you know, still would look at 2012 as, I think, one of the great moments of their life, the penalty shoot. I don't think it was diminished. I don't think it was diminished by the shootout.
No, not at all.
But it was diminished by someone getting sacked months afterwards.
But and the thing is, they were on a journey with that team. That was still Jose's team, in effect.
They ran the place. I mean, but that was the thing. I mean, of course, the theory would have been that it would have been the relationship that senior players had with ownership superseded any relationship that management had. Or sorry, that the manager had. Yeah. And I know what you're saying. Like, they were like de facto managers. Well, let's be honest. Is the Chelsea arc just all? Are we all just calling time until John Terry eventually comes back? That's basically. I'm
back interested then. I'm back.
You are interested.
Oh yeah, if Terry comes back, I was interested to see what Lampard would do. If Terry was manager, I'd be curious again. I'd be, you know, there'd be a genuine interest as opposed to the next very polished, very tactically adept, multilingual manager to come in and earn his 10 million.
I suppose if Terry comes back and inevitably gets binned, it means that pretty much everyone associated with Chelsea has been dumped at some stage or other by Chelsea. You know, how many have actually left on their own? Now, Lampard, you know, but now he's been shown the door. Like, whoever leaves Chelsea on their own terms.
And that's fair enough. Like, Solskjaer is not going to leave United on his own terms. It's unlikely even Klopp will leave on his own terms. That's nobody does, and it's unrealistic. It's just the sense of inevitability.
You want a journey, Joe. You want a journey. You want the Chelsea journey to be a thing that we discuss. You know, what about and at the start of Lampard, you see with the young lads, it did seem like they were going on some type of journey. And then they were allowed to buy players and beat Chelsea again,
They went back
which is the worst thing that could have happened.
Yeah, that's it. Totally. Like last year, I was really like, this is interesting, and I hope Tammy does it. Like I've got my doubts. Tammy's going to be the answer, but I hope he does. And Mount and you know, all that stuff. It's just like the sense of when Liverpool win the league or the Champions League under Klopp, there's this sense of, my God, where's all this going to go? This is amazing. You know, we're on to something here. This is magical. Can we keep it going?
There's a lot of emotional people writing about Liverpool as well too, Joe.
There are, but fair, I'm not a Liverpool fan.
Emotional Chelsea fans out there somewhere.
I don't know. You see, I think when they win the league under Conte or when they win the league under Jose, they're like, I wonder will he still be manager this time next year? There's no sense of this thing blossoming into, God, 2-3 years of stability, things are going really well, maybe a good assault on Europe. It seems to just implode. In part, I suspect, because Chelsea's such a political club and no manager feels really like they've been allowed to do the job fully, you know? And like Tuchel, we'll talk about Tuchel later on with Rob Daly, like he clashes. He clashed at Dortmund, he clashed at Mainz, he clashed at PSG, he's going to clash at Chelsea. So there is just no chance already. There is no chance already that Tuchel and Chelsea can have even a 3-year relationship. And I think if you're a Chelsea fan, there has to be a sense of, right, so like, got to win the league this year. And look, that'll be fun, I guess. And maybe it's not about Chelsea fans, to be fair, but the wider public looking in, there's no sense of where's this going to go.
No, I know. Listen, I've been a bit cantankerous. Like, of course, it's completely correct. Like, I mean, it's just part of the thing. I mean, it's very hard to spin a journey out of the Russian oligarch taking over your club and you know, making it into what it is. Like you've already. I mean, Liverpool has managed to do it, even though they still have their American ownership, who are part of, like, you know, the sort of the super club plot to, like, basically destroy the game in some shape or form. Yeah. But, you know, there's a bit more emotion and sentiment around the Liverpool thing. But maybe Chelsea are the perfect representation of the modern Premier League. Maybe in fact they're the perfect poster boy for it, and they want to take us eventually towards a franchised world, it seems, you know, some of the Super League clubs. So a club that sort of just keeps the sporting director and hires the coach every so often is sort of perfect for that. The club of the future, maybe. Yeah,
and look, it's not like they're completely unique in the way they're doing their business. Like, to some degree or other, that's just the nature of the league now. But they just seem like a particularly grim example of it, and it's successful and it's working. And so, I don't know, don't you want in football still, you still want some kind of emotional bias whereby a Solskjaer gets the job when he doesn't fully deserve it, or Lampard gets the job, you know, just because, like, you're a legend of the club, and there's something a bit more than just, like, you know, money and what the board think, and there's a relationship with the fans, and it just all represents something a bit more. Where, like, so if it goes the way Chelsea are, and if every club went that way, then I don't know. I talk to a lot of people in my age group, and they're already a little bit disenfranchised with the whole thing because of the money and how soulless it's become, and sanitised and corporate and all that stuff. Like, and I know, like, for a bunch of United fans, Solskjaer has reeled them back in. You know, it has stirred something in them. It's like, oh my God, like, this means something. This is a continuation of some kind of story and link with the past, and this adds to the kind of tapestry of the club. And I want to see, does he, like, maybe it blows up. Maybe he's successful, and that's amazing. Either way, I'm interested. Thomas Tuchel, you know, good luck.
But who knows? The Chelsea cycle, Joe, is that in 6. So in 2 years' time, you're right. We're dissecting his departure, or maybe 3 years. But in around 6 months' time, it's going to be
win the league.
How he's put the smile back on the faces. You know, how everyone's fallen in love with charismatic Thomas Tuchel and his Chelsea team.
How Kai Havertz found his joy. Look, you know, great.
So 2 years, like, none of them liked them.
You have Chelsea family, because I remember we had this discussion a couple of years back where I was, you know, Chelsea in particular grimmed me out for all these reasons, and I think somebody you know was not impressed with us, to say the least, and thought it was an outrage.
A complaint. Yeah,
a complaint. Okay, so that suggests they're pretty happy with their lot.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure if they're. I said I do have some Chelsea fans in my life. I'm not sure if they're happy with their lot at the moment. And you are right. I do think it maybe it wears people down over a period of time. I mean, you can only win something for the first time once, you know, like they had their league, they had their Champions League. And I suppose, like, what are they striving for now? Well, just to beat everyone else eventually. It's hard to get. I understand your point that I suppose you had those sort of totemic figures, like that the club was centered around them. Like, who is that character at Chelsea now that is that beloved figure? You know, Kante maybe. You know, like someone who's been around for a while and has had some success.
But I don't even mind if, like, just don't fire everybody at the first sign of trouble. Like, don't argue with Conte, who's won your league. Let Conte build something.
But that's not what they do.
Yeah, but that's the pointlessness of it, you know.
Yeah, it is, and like as I said, it always strikes me that it's always very well sourced, the stuff that comes out. It's always like there's always people behind the scenes at Chelsea. Like even one of the stories today mentioned that I think it was the Athletic story that, like, at 9:30 in the morning after Lampard was it was in for an 8 a.m. meeting. This is a classic example of how modern football works. Like at 9:30, they called other candidates to let them know they were unsuccessful and to thank them, thank them for their sort of efforts. As though, I mean, we all know this happens. It happens everywhere. But there's been this process going on for weeks to replace Lampard in the background, and that's what you do. It happens. Yeah.
We should move on. Kieran and Ashburn, Chelsea's boom bust model can't be criticised while they're consistently winning trophies. You'd wonder, though, whether they can attract new fans with no club identity or succession plan. I thought sacking Lampard was the right decision, but would like more stability and transparency at Chelsea. Well, we'll talk to Rob Daly in a moment. I do want to get your thoughts on what's going on at Liverpool, by the way, but we have to get a quick ad break out of the way, Dan. And also, we talked grassroots football last night. I know you heard the conversation, so I'd be curious for your general sense of where we are when it comes to football development, I guess, in Ireland. Back in 1 sec.
Football on Off the Ball
with Paddy Power. New normal, same old football. Paddy Power. Gamble responsibly. Gamblingcare.ie.
On tomorrow's Pat Kenny Show, one family's awful experience of COVID-19.
I had to just text home.
We had to ring you then just on the phone, put you on speaker and basically say goodbye because we weren't sure whether you were going to be alive or come off the ventilator.
Anti-curfew riots on the streets of the Netherlands. Bill Hughes goes behind the scenes of American Hustle, as well as all the breaking news.
The Pat Kenny Show
with Mater Private Network.
Tomorrow morning at 9.
on News Talk.
January usually involves slipping on ice at 6 a.m, hypothermia from sea swims, and having your legs curse you during spin class. Or you could try a better way to get some goodness. Green Isle cauliflower bites and fries. Tasty, plant-based, ready in 14 minutes. Green Isle, goodness for all.
The UK has left the EU. The HSE continues to work with the Department of Health and other agencies to minimise the impact of Brexit on healthcare in Ireland. For more information on your health services and Brexit, visit hse.ie/Brexit. From the HSE.
Are your employees working remotely but struggling with unreliable phone and collaboration tools? Take a free trial of Avaya Cloud Office by RingCentral at cloudoffice.ie.
At Expert Electrical, we love long life performance. Like the new Siemens Home Appliance IQ 500 washing machine, exclusive to Expert. Their intelligent IQ drive motor cuts energy consumption while maximizing performance. With a free 5-year extended warranty, put confidence in your wash. Shop Siemens IQ 500 washing machines only at Expert Electrical stores and expert.ie.
Football on Off the Ball
with Paddy Power. Minimal contact in stadiums shouldn't stop the usual suspects from going down. Gamble responsibly. Gamblingcare.ie.
Now, you're very welcome back. So, latest in the Premier League, Arsenal still 2-1 up against Southampton, and Man City now 5-0 up against West Brom. They are just cruising. Raheem Sterling with their 5th, Mahrez with their 4th, Gundogan 2 goals this evening, Cancelo with their 2nd. So 5-0 up. Texting from Terry, not sure if it's John, Dan. Joe, I sense Dan completely agrees with you, but doesn't want to be the end of another tirade from his Chelsea-supporting family member. Admit it's soulless, Dan. Now we're talking. Good text in from Terry. Nail on the head.
Okay, yeah, no. I mean, is that just you pointing out that I was agreeing with you? Like, you know, I mean, I think that they are soulless to some degree, but they're not alone in that. That's my point. They are no more or less soulless than a lot of other clubs. Just don't do it for you, Joe. You want the journey. You're just a journey lover. You want the journey.
Even like every third or fourth manager, just not the certainty that there will never be one. That's the problem. Oh, I've summed it up. It's the certainty there will never be one.
Well, there you go.
That's it. That's the point. Niall and Lucan, in relation to managers of Chelsea, they know it's a results business. Same for all clubs. If you don't do your job, you're out. Supporters support the team. Managers are transient, says Niall and Lucan. Look, it could be just me. So before we go to Rob Daly, Dan, and we'll talk to him about Spurs, Liverpool, and I'll get your thoughts on Liverpool. We had a discussion last night on grassroots football in Ireland. It's a very dense topic. It's very unwieldy. There's obviously a host of stakeholders and a ton of views to match. So do you want to give us a quick overview, your reaction to the chat last night and just what jumps out to you about football development in Ireland? We won't labour the point because we did do a lot on it last night, but I'd be curious to get your reaction.
Yeah, no, I know you had a lengthy chat on it last night, and I said I did listen to it. I'd advise anyone who's interested enough to go back and listen to it, if you know what I mean, if they haven't. I think it was actually a striking point that was made towards the end as regards communication and getting all the parties to get into a room and speak together, because I think like there's no end to the debate you had last night. You can take it to wherever you want it. Like one of the basic problems that we are dealing with in this country is that, like, for example, professional rugby obviously didn't exist here, and it started from scratch and it went from there. Like, if you were to try and start to build a football structure from scratch in Ireland, you wouldn't do what you have at the moment. Like, what you have at the moment is a product of years and years of the culture that exists, the dysfunction that exists, the fact that in some parts of the country, which you have opportunities, in some parts of the country you don't really, these are issues that are very hard to solve, and I do think there are positive attempts being made to address them as regards, say, national underage leagues and stuff like that. What I would say is, it's something in recent years I've tried to get more actively involved in covering and speaking to people involved with it, because for years in this country we just assumed that the international team is just all that matters, and never really paid maybe that much attention to what was going on below the bonnet really in any great detail. But I speak to people now who have, there's some great people working in Irish football with some great ideas, but I don't know if they necessarily all get in a room together that often. Like, if you have a situation at the moment, it's a frustration that's been aired to me in recent times that we do have some good academies in this country producing talented players. Like, there's a small number of them, but they are doing it. But I don't think they've even had a proper chat with Rue Doctor, who's like the high performance head in the FAI. I think it was said, I think it's been written about and alluded to recently, maybe in a couple of years. And there's big discussions around, as you mentioned, we have an under-13, under-15 league. What do we do with the gaps? A lot of things out there that we can, as I said, we can go round about in circles discussing them forever, and you can't really solve it. There's different opinions. Are we too elite? Are we doing too much too soon with young players? There's different views in that exist for a range of people. I think the problem is that I'm not necessarily sure how many forums there are for these things to be raised. The one thing I would say is the FAI did recently advertise for a League of Ireland Academy Director, which is an interesting job title, and I'd be interested to see what calibre of person they appoint and what their remit is.
Okay.
Because I think that's going to be a significant role.
Okay. Well, we might pick that up when that role is filled. Rob Daly joins us. Rob, sorry to keep you waiting. How you doing?
Not bad. How are you guys?
We're very well. We finished talking Chelsea and Lampard, so we're moving on to Spurs. But Tuchel obviously is somebody you'll be familiar with. Rob covers German football as well as Spurs a lot. We'll get on to Spurs Liverpool in a moment. I think Tuchel was even interviewed by Marina at Chelsea a couple of years ago, and the meeting went very well, and in the end they went for Lampard, but he was in the mix then. Tell us about him as a personality, because it seems he's clashed with every board that he has worked for, and he fell out with the chief scout Sven Mislintat at Mainz as well. Disagreements over finances and various things. Him and Leonardo were having a very public disagreement on a fairly regular basis. So, I mean, all this bodes well for choppy seas at Chelsea.
Yeah, I mean, he's very sure-minded, and he has clashed with, sporting directors and the like, player recruitment being a particular issue in recent times for him. He wasn't happy with Leonardo in particular over the summer, that the business that Paris Saint-Germain were doing, he felt they weren't strengthening in the right department. I wonder if there's a little bit of him now that knows there's not much point to all of this, to the continued fighting with sporting directors. I mean, only recently he was saying, I'm surprised to the extent to which I'm a politician in my role as Paris Saint-Germain manager. He's got an 18-month contract, right? And I think it will just be coaching. And I don't think he has to worry about player recruitment, because I think we can all universally agree that Chelsea squad is well equipped to do very well. And he's also a man who's big on not only player development in terms of their characteristics improving in attacking and defending sense, but also in personal development. And with that young core in that Chelsea squad, I think it's a very exciting appointment.
His playing career ended at the age of 25. He had a knee injury. Jason Berta has an interesting piece in the Telegraph today. Talks about how he's a perfectionist, obsessive about detail, very interested in statistics as well. And to your point, Rob, about the fact that he may just go here and just be a coach and not worry about recruitment. He is very hands-on when it comes to coaching, to the extent that he'll put out the cones himself. He's that kind of a manager. Yeah,
because he did it. He's been doing this for 17 years now. I think it's around 2004 he started working in youth football in Germany. He's a proper coach. And he did it with, under 19 level at Bundesliga clubs, and was wanted by the German Football Association, the DFB, at one point to be the under 21 coach for the German national team. But Mainz took a risk on him not long after Jurgen Klopp had left for Borussia Dortmund. And he had sort of followed Klopp's career a little bit by replacing him at Dortmund when things, obviously the Klopp era sort of ran into the ground a little bit in 2015. And, every single player really who has worked with him will speak to the extent to which he has improved them. And I think he'll look at the group that Chelsea have now. I think he'll actually be backing himself. Yes, it's an 18-month contract, and that's relatively unusual, or perhaps indicative of not having the greatest faith in a head coach who's going to be there for a long time. But I think Tuchel has signed that backing himself, definitely, to be staying much longer than that. I think he looks at players like Christian Pulisic, who he brought through at Borussia Dortmund. Granted, he was obviously going to be a megastar, but he nurtured his development into the first team. He'll look at Havertz and Timo Werner. We might get onto that, and the fact they're German, of course, and he'll know them very well from the Bundesliga. I can't speak to his personal relationship with Thiago Silva. There's mixed things coming out about that. Both left Paris Saint-Germain in rather sad circumstances, but I think there's a lot of reasons to connect the dots, and from a Chelsea point of view, and think Thomas Tuchel's the guy to not only build for the future but to salvage the season. Yeah. And it's an appointment to me that says there is still way too much to play for to write it off by bringing in some interim coach to the end of the campaign.
Yeah, like Rob, I was going to say, I mean, what have you actually made of the struggles, I suppose, of Havertz and Werner? I know Werner started quite well, but what's your take on actually how they've got on, and what can Tuchel bring? Like, what can he get out of them that Lampard wasn't?
I'll speak to Timo Werner first of all, because my overriding memory of Timo Werner as a youngster when he was at Stuttgart, and he was widely known to be, potentially the next great German forward, was his ability to get into goal-scoring positions very easily, because of his intelligence and his pace. What you would see him do for Stuttgart before he joined RB Leipzig was be able to run into the channels, break into gaps, and quite a lot of the time one-on-one he'd miss. It was a bit of an unwanted characteristic of his game at that point. When he went to Leipzig and worked with the club there, they seemed to iron out those finishing issues. I imagine it's probably a confidence thing. He's in a brand new country. There is a modest but big price tag by today's standards, and I think it will just be a confidence issue for Kai Havertz. I've been really thinking about what Tuchel's directly going to do with those two players. I don't think it's impossible he plays them both up front as a pair. Like we sort of saw from PSG at the back end of last season in their Champions League run. They were sort of 4-2-2-2, that kind of system. And I could see him doing something similar with Havertz and Werner up front. I think he'll work out how to get those two singing, because they're great. They're great players. The other thing I think will be interesting is whether or not he turns to Billy Gilmour in central midfield, because he likes a central midfielder to play with his back to goal and collect the ball on the edge of his team's own penalty area. He'll split the centre backs and the defensive midfield has to drop in like Verratti could do. You can't really press Verratti. He's so good at turning out of spaces and playing the ball off. From what I've seen of Billy Gilmour, and there'll be Chelsea fans who've seen much more of him than me, and they do have Jorginho, of course, who's good at that too. I wonder if he'll look at Billy Gilmour in the first few training sessions, fitness dependent, and think, I might build the team around him with Havertz and Werner, leading the line.
Interesting. Be a big show of confidence in Gilmour, but he does look very promising. It's interesting when you say about Havertz and Werner playing up front. In Miguel Delaney's piece today, and I hope Frank Lampard's not reading this, because apparently he writes, it should be noted some opposition managers in the Premier League of Lampard didn't think Chelsea were difficult to prepare against. Players like Werner and Havertz weren't usually in positions where they would really hurt you, was the quote. So that was their Premier League managers, their sense of how he was using Havertz and Werner. Another thing about Tuchel is he tried to sign Rudiger, who Lampard was happy to sell, and the Chelsea hierarchy really didn't want that to happen. So, who knows to what extent all these little things feed into their decision-making. Havertz and Werner both speak English, as does Tuchel. So I think that the German language speaking aspect was less the attraction than the Bundesliga experience.
Yeah, I think so. I'm excited. I think there'll be a couple of players on the fringes who will come to the fore for Chelsea. And he's a big winger guy. He loves wingers. And he has worked with Pulisic before, who's spoken glowingly about him. Whether he can sort of get more out of Hudson-Odoi. Again, I don't see every Chelsea game, but I don't think he has flourished as many thought he would, given the way he broke into the first team a couple of years ago, rather reluctantly under Maurizio Sarri, from memory, who wasn't that keen on pushing him into the first team. But I think we might see someone like Hudson-Odoi as well benefit from Tuchel's appointment.
Yeah. Rob, stay with us. I want you to give us the Spurs short story and a short version of events in a moment. But Dan, just on Liverpool, it's amazing. There's just so little consensus on why things are going wrong. Everybody's pretty aware things are going wrong. So, for instance, Graham Souness at the weekend in the Sunday Times was pinpointing midfield. It's absolutely midfield. Fabinho, Henderson, get them back in there. Can't happen soon enough. I was listening to John Giles with Eamon Dunphy then yesterday, and I think Dunphy was of a view, get Henderson back in there. He's the tempo, the heartbeat, the driver. And Giles was not so sure, is Henderson that crucial to this team really? Does it explain the fall off? He was saying, give me Thiago over Henderson any day. And he was talking about the full-backs a bit more and how it's hard to keep going as a team, the psychology of things. And then you listen to other people and they're like, it's about the front three. Defence is fine. It's about the front three. Firmino's off. Salah's head's been turned. He's not right. Literally every line on the pitch is being dissected, and I guess the conclusion is this is a very complicated problem. There's no one thing.
Yeah, do we pick one of them now and decide that is the actor?
I was hoping you might. I was hoping you might.
Is it an A, B, C sort of scenario? Is it, or is it just all of the above in a certain way? That it's just flat. I'm looking here. Man City are 5-0 up now, and there's a lot of discussions around how they're sort of peaking and timing things right in the season in terms of maybe even physically how they've managed the schedule. And I don't know about you. I think just sometimes the Liverpool games, it's just actually the flatness that's the most striking thing. Yeah. And you can then drill down and you can find specific players who are struggling and are below form. But Salah I think is still the top scorer at the moment in the Premier League. You can. I don't know if it's that easy to diagnose, and is it just more of a collective thing that sometimes if you're at the top of your game for so long, it's hard to maintain that intensity consistently, and that might just be what it is. To be a really great team, to last through an era, there will be dips and there will be times where maybe the toil of being at the top of their game for a couple of seasons. When you consider the year they won the Champions League, they had a brilliant Premier League season where they went toe-to-toe at Man City and just lost out, very narrowly. They've just been on the treadmill for a long time, and that's, look, the Van Dijk is probably the easiest answer of all, I guess, but there's obviously more to it than that when you're watching games where they're just struggling to break down Burnley. They look like they have no ideas.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been an unbelievable fall off. So Spurs on Thursday then, Rob, I know you're more of a Spurs viewer. Liverpool are in 5th as of this evening. David Moyes is having an unbelievable season. Liverpool in 5th, Spurs in 6th. How have they been going of late?
Yeah, they've been doing okay. I mean, you look at the results and it's I think it's 5 or 6 wins in 8 and the other games have been draws. It took a bit of work the other night against Wycombe. The scoreline was flattering. Wycombe were pretty good, and Spurs banged in 3 goals in the final minutes. What will be encouraging from the other night will be the performance of Gareth Bale. Now, you might look at it and say, well, it's a performance against the bottom side of the Championship. An FA Cup Monday tie. They hadn't played in 2 weeks. But Bale looked unbelievably sharp the other night. It was the sharpest I've seen him. And obviously, from a Spurs point of view, you spend that money, granted on loan, to bring him into the football club, and you hope that by this point in the season, he's on song, he's doing stuff. It's going to be difficult for him to reach peak Bale again, but you'd certainly be hoping for more of a contribution. But he's been unfortunate with injuries. Obviously, it's part of the risk you take when you sign Gareth Bale, but it was very encouraging the other night. Granted, Kane and Son as well haven't been as fluent as they were. They were just operating in this completely other dreamy world at one point at the start of this Premier League season. They've sort of slowed down a bit. But I think in terms of output, I think Spurs, in terms of winning games, because they don't concede many goals, they need to see a little bit more from the right-hand side of the pitch in an attacking sense, because Son down the left and Reguilon is providing loads of assists, having signed from Real Madrid. Down the right, we're not seeing that from Matt Doherty. We're not seeing that from Serge Aurier. We haven't seen that from Bale and Lucas, and Bergwijn's played 20 games and not scored yet. If they can address the balance and have a bit more distribution all over the pitch, the performances of Ndombele lately have been outrageous and compelling. Then I think we'll see a Spurs team certainly cement a Champions League spot. And Thursday night feels like a big test of, it's stupid to say how far they come because they only played Liverpool a month ago. It'd be a good indicator of where Spurs are right now.
Because I watched Gareth Bale against Ludogorets away in the Europa League, and honestly, I thought it's over. He's not interested. So it's interesting that he has turned it around.
Yeah, he was very purposeful. I mean, the Europa League, they were trying to get him up to speed, but the games all felt very important because over everything that Spurs do is this must win a trophy, the trophy thing. Yeah, because it's 11 seasons now. So going out of a competition, particularly under Mourinho, like a cup manager, a trophy manager, everything feels so precarious. So if Bale wasn't working, Mourinho would be thinking, we do need to win this game. I'll take him off and bring someone on like Son, who might win us a game as he did in the Europa League on occasion. I think it'll be encouraging his performances the other night. But I don't know how much you've seen of Tanguy Ndombele recently. I mean, the guy, he is playing some of the most ridiculous football. First of all, you can't get the ball off him. He sort of rolls you off his back and his backside as he turns and shimmies, and he's got these wonderful touches at the moment. He's all confident. His finishing's outrageous. I know a lot was made of his goal against Sheffield United, but that was sort of just the sort of tipping point, the big moment really that he's had in recent weeks, because he is playing some unreal football.
Yeah, it's a major turnaround from even in the documentary series on Amazon, where there's almost a crisis meeting midway through that, where he used to sit down with Daniel Levy and they're saying, look, what's wrong? What's going on here? He had real settling in problems, but geez, it's turned around. We're pretty fond of Matt Doherty. He's kind of important to us. Is Jose ruining him?
Sorry, say that one more time, Joe. It broke up a little bit there.
It's all right. I'm sort of joking anyway. I was saying we're quite fond of Matt Doherty. He's quite important to the Republic of Ireland. We're worried Jose's ruining him.
That wasn't me swerving a question, I promise. That was genuine distortion. So I think Matt Doherty himself has spoken about, and I'm sure I've heard him on your show a couple of times at least, but he's spoken about this season, about how he's had to get out of bad habits. And he means in terms of playing playing right wing back in a back five, or whatever you want to call what Wolves played, right? He played right wing back. Yeah. And I think he's realising that the position is very different. It is very different. He's not bombing up and getting to the byline and causing problems like he did to Spurs last season. He was a menace to Spurs last season, particularly in the March game in North London. I think he's realising that there are real fundamentals to playing in a back four that he's not really used to. And I think he has helped improve Aurier. They've driven on each other, and Aurier's been performing a lot better. Leicester penalty mistake aside, he has actually been very good this season. And now Doherty can't get around Aurier. Doherty was first choice right back, but now Aurier's first choice right back. And Aurier does have some credit in the bank as well, despite his recent error against Leicester. He played at the back end of last season after the death of his brother, and he kept playing because Spurs had no other option at right back. He went back to see his mother and everything back in France. So there's a lot of goodwill towards Serge Aurier, not only from the manager, but from fans as well for what he did last season. So it's going to be tricky. The good thing for Matt Doherty, I suppose, here is there are so many games. He is injured at the moment. He's been injured for the last 2. So that's why you might not have seen him in the team. But there's some work to be done to establish himself, because personally, they signed him and I thought, right back problem sorted. Absolutely done and dusted. First choice right back the whole season. But the form of Aurier combined, I think, for Matt Doherty, the adjusting back to a back four has made things a little bit more tricky maybe than he would have imagined, because Spurs fans thought, bargain, one of the best right backs in the Premier League. That was a no-brainer in the summer.
Yeah, we'll watch that space. Rob, thanks so much. Great having you on.
Thanks for having me. Cheers, guys.
Rob Daly there. Dan, I'll get your prediction for this game in just a second.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Paddy Power. New normal, same old football. Paddy Power. Gamble responsibly. Gamblingcare.ie.
Psychology, performance analysis, sports therapy and coaching all contribute to elite performance in sport. At Portobello Institute, we offer full-time and blended learning honours degrees in each of these sporting disciplines. Affordable and accessible online study, small group lectures and practicals are now enrolling at Portobello Institute. So talk to an expert about our full-time and blended learning sports degree courses at our virtual open sessions. Visit portobelloinstitute.com for details.
At Bank of Ireland, you don't have to talk face-to-face. Our mortgage team are happy to talk FaceTime to FaceTime and give you all the info you need, from how to get started to how much to save. FaceTime our mortgage team to talk about a personalised mortgage that's right for you. When you're ready to make a move, we're ready to make it with you. Bank of Ireland. Begin. Lending criteria, terms and conditions apply. Over 18s only. Mortgage approval subject to assessment of suitability and affordability. Bank of Ireland Mortgage Bank trading as Bank of Ireland Mortgages is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Paddy Power. Gamble responsibly. Gamblingcare.ie.
Now then, you're welcome back. So City cruising, Arsenal 3-1 up on Southampton now. Dan McDonnell, do you want to give us your prediction for Thursday evening? Spurs at home?
I don't know. Like I still sort of have this feeling that Liverpool are going to click into form at some stage. Is this the type of game where they do it?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe.
You do feel like this team can't just go off a cliff, surely. Like they haven't grown old together. They'll rebound at some stage.
No, they can't. No, they're not going to. I don't think so. No, I can't see them dropping off dramatically. Like they still can be sensational on a given day. And the fact that like Man City are just like steamrolling teams now, in the way that Liverpool might have. I mean, if they're not going to respond now, then when are they going to respond? I guess it's a big game though, and like Spurs, as Rob mentioned, have their own. Spurs have their own reason to really fancy this game, and obviously they're looking for a bit of vengeance from the last time. Interesting to listen to the Matt Doherty chat. Certainly, it hasn't turned into the move that we would have wanted it to be, but maybe we'll discuss that one again on another day.
Yeah, anytime I've seen him, he's looked fine. Certainly not bad, but most certainly not the Wolves, Matt Doherty.
No, but like at Wolves, he played in a 3-4-3, the right of a 3-4-3 with Traore even ahead of him sometimes. It was a very different setup. And I know when he went to Spurs, there was a suggestion that, yeah, he'll be right back, but he'll be told he can play high up the pitch. I think even Stephen Kenny spoke about that. But look, there's still more questions asked of you defensively in that back four, and there's no doubt he's been put under a type of pressure that he wouldn't have encountered in the way that Wolves operated it. But it's, as he mentioned, there's a lot of fixtures that he will be involved in some high intensity games towards the end of the season, and it's going to be really interesting to see how he gets on with it. But you'd imagine Seamus Coleman has a very good chance of playing ahead of him in March. Not everything comes back to the Irish team. It's just good to have an Irish player in that position, but it's obviously not as clear cut maybe that Doherty is the form player maybe as he once was. Yeah. Maybe from an Irish perspective, it's good he's getting all this game time in the back four, which is invariably where he'll play. That's very true. I think it's a great learning experience from the year. Whatever happens, I think he'll have taken a lot from it. But We'll see.
Make your mistakes for Spurs, Matt, is our message. Dan, thanks a mil for this evening. Much appreciated.
Thanks, Joe. Talk to you soon.
Dan McDonnell there of the Irish Independent. That's pretty much us done for the evening. The lads are busy tomorrow on AM as part of our continued grassroots series. Diarmuid Ling is going to talk about his experience playing sport as a kid, which I fully suspect to be very thoughtful and interesting. Christian Falk will talk about Thomas Tuchel as well. He's of Sport Bild, Christian Falk. Orla O'Dwyer as well, former dual star for Tip, on life in the AFL with the Brisbane Lions. So that's all on the way from 7:30. Tomorrow evening, amongst other things, Ronan O'Gara is going to join us for Wednesday Night Rugby as the Six Nations approaches. Richie McCormick is in for Tom Dunn next.